What's going on, nation? What is going on, Business Athlete Nation? To all you BAPLetes out there tuning in on a Tuesday, we're live in the lab. We sure are. So listen, we're bringing some things differently in the show today. You know, one of the things when you do a live show every single day, there's a commitment. We make the commitment because if you're going to make it to us, we want to make sure we make it to you. Daily, you'll find us here on LinkedIn, X, YouTube. And I bring that to you because some days schedules don't work out. And as we're learning with this live process and this daily commitment of gathering wonderful guests to bring aboard, sometimes you look at the calendar and you're like, all right, we have a spot open today. Just didn't work out. Schedules didn't coincide with everybody involved. So we're going to run a special rebroadcast. Yeah, a special rebroadcast with somebody we met with a couple of weeks back, Ari Meisel. Why Ari? I'll tell you why. So we're coming into the end of November, no month, and heading into December. It's that time of the year that perhaps those feelings of being overwhelmed come across your desk, come through your life. You know, not let alone are you trying to figure out what's next in your life. Now you're feeling overwhelmed with the pressure of the holiday season. That brings up emotions that some people like, some people don't like. You know, the end of the year emotions, the looking in the mirror emotions because you know January's around the corner. All those overwhelming feelings that we have as we come into the end of the new year and as we wrap up the month of November. So, I looked in the old library and you know who came up? Ari. And I said to myself, this is the guy we got to welcome back into the lab and play that show where we met with the guy, Ari Meisel, the overwhelmologist. He will help you feel less overwhelmed. So this episode is going to teach you some tricks and some tips and give you some insights to be less overwhelmed. And one of the tips and trips that I took from that episode we aired originally, hear me clearly, use asynchronous messaging. Yeah, what is that? Well, use that old iPhone, that Android phone in your pocket, pick it up and talk to it. Use audio, use video, and send it to your teammates. Send it to your colleagues. It's powerful. It's magical. It's a way for you to get your message across in a very personal, human way outside of what we already know, which is text. So there's that tip. Tune into the show, give it a listen, and we will invite you to chat in the comments below. Ari Meisel, the special rebroadcast, live in the lab. Hey, everybody. You got Keith here. You got Keith Bilous, and I'm live in the lab. Oh, I'm live in the Business Athlete Performance Lab. I'm bringing in some rock and roll today. Overwhelming music. Overwhelming. Does this guy always repeat himself every time he intros the show? Yeah, he does. It's a trait. So you're wondering, why the overwhelming music? Let me tell you, let me get my notes here in front of me. The overwhelming music is because we're bringing in our guest, who's a self-described overwhelmologist and founder of Less Doing. Ari Meisel joins us in the lab. So Ari, he helps entrepreneurs who have, well, essentially more opportunities than their infrastructure can support to find focus, flexibility, and freedom in their business. Essentially, Ari's an automation expert. He offers various programs, courses to teach his methodology and principles. So if you're overwhelmed, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs are overwhelmed. It's the never-ending to-do list. One day when they realize that it's actually should be the never-ending not-to-doing list. That's where Ari comes in. He'll help you automate your business and help you as an entrepreneur, as a founder, get some time back in your life, I'm sure. Put some automation into your life. Ari's a graduate of the Wharton School of Business and is known for his coaching prowess and ability to inspire leaders to become more agile. He's also an emergency medical technician at Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad. Hey, why don't we take a second here? Welcome in Ari Meisel. Ari, what's shaking, man?
Hey, Keith, how are you? Nice intro.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Like I said, we're trying to up the production quality, and every single show, it appears that we're not only the guests getting better, and that's not a shot at the previous guests. Not a shot.
Or the guests that will come after me.
Or the guests that will come after you. Yes, yeah. It's funny because are you a parent?
5 times.
Okay, yes, so am I. And do you have a favorite? Or do you have a favorite son or a daughter, or do you have a no? Because of course,
it depends on the day.
That's saying I don't have a favorite guest, although every single day I seem to have a favorite guest. I'm like, oh, this is I get off the show and rolling, producer rolling. This has been the best guest. But listen, thanks for being here today. Where are you joining us from?
Princeton, New Jersey.
Hi, Princeton, New Jersey. So you didn't move far from where you went to Wharton. Am I correct?
And I grew up in New York City, so we've been here for about 3 years now.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So I have to tell you, when I came across the business and your profile, and I found you're described as a self-described overwhelmologist. And that's when I knew that this idea of the long tail exists for everybody, right? We can pick a brand, we can pick a branding of ourselves, we can pick a niche, and we can monetize it. So tell the audience what this idea of being an overwhelmologist is.
Yeah, first of all, I didn't quite pick it picked me, because I had been working in construction and real estate development for several years, and then I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which had just enormous effects on my ability to get things done. And ultimately, what happened was I was presented with this question of what would you do if you could only work an hour a day, which has been the sort of genesis of everything that's come since then. The overwhelm part of it is that the overwhelm comes in so many different forms for people, and I think more and more people are experiencing it, whether it's from just work or work and family or sort of everything in between. And I see so much overwhelm in so many different facets of people's lives. And a lot of it just happens because they don't know what's causing the overwhelm. And I know that sounds very circular, but this sort of like impending doom that everybody seems to have because they just don't have systems in place. They're not organized. They can't communicate, to delegate, to automate things that they need to, is a big part of it. And ultimately, what we see is this extreme form of overwhelm where people get into a state that they feel like no matter what they do, they're going to disappoint somebody. So that's a really tough place to be, and most people have been there at some point.
So you sit down with these people and help them be less overwhelmed. Would I describe that properly?
Yeah, I think so, because I'd like to think so, because the antidote to stress in my mind is control to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
And control over things as what might sound very trivial as your inbox, for example, which is an interesting one. The email inbox is like the number one source of stress for everybody at every level. But I argue that the email problem is not an email problem, it's a decision-making problem, and that people just don't have systems for making decisions. And a lot of times I think that people are just thrust into these situations that we've never really been prepared for. And it's like giving someone a keys to the car without teaching them how to use it. Having a system, having something to fall back on, having a backup to yourself. One of my last books was called The Replaceable Founder. And the idea is to make everybody in a business more replaceable, not replace them, but make them more replaceable, which means creating systems and processes that replace the things that they do so that they can replace themselves up, not out, and focus on more of what they're really best at.
Ari, from your experience, why is it so difficult for founders or business leaders to adopt systems? And why is it, and that same question applies to not only at work, but when they go home into their life. Why is it so difficult?
Because for a number of different reasons, some of which are just cultural and some of which are just habitual, we ascribe value to things that we shouldn't be ascribing value to. So we'll ascribe value to our ability to sleep less, right, than the other person, or our ability to fill out paperwork more efficiently than somebody else, or our ability to book a flight better than somebody else. And so you see this certainly with the founder, it becomes a super ego issue because it's their company, it's their idea, but they never take into account that having good ideas makes you an innovator and makes you an entrepreneur. It doesn't make you fit to run a company or lead it or grow it necessarily. And being able to step out of that way, and then what's my point? What's my worth? You take somebody like, I hate to jump right to this, but you take somebody like Elon Musk. I would argue that Elon Musk is a genius of an innovator, terrible at running companies. And shitty leader in a lot of ways. He's pretty toxic in many ways, but he's created some of the greatest innovations we've had nowadays. And he recognizes that, I think, because he creates something, innovates, moves on to something else, moves on to something else, moves on to something else. And some people are just designed to innovate, and that's fine. But when you have people in a smaller business or a new company, or God forbid it's a venture-backed business, then it's their presence becomes the thing that's so valuable, and they can't let go of that. And then on the personal side, so one of the things that I'm always telling clients is that they should be using virtual assistants and assistants in general in their personal life as much, if not more, than they do in their business life. And it's a really hard one for people to get their heads around, because they can't assign like an ROI to paying somebody to help them with stuff at home. But at the end of the day, I have 5 kids, right? So to send them to camp, for example, send all 5 kids to camp next summer, it's a lot of paperwork, a lot of research. Now, does it show them more love for me to be the one that fills out the paperwork and spends the time doing that, or to have somebody else do that and then I can focus on them? But unfortunately, other people are like, no, I got to come home. I got to be the one that does this. I can't possibly let somebody else take over this task. So it's a very like circular sort of like vicious cycle of a mindset that a lot of people have.
Ari, people like to be busy. People love getting trophies for being busy, don't they? People love the word, oh, I'm busy.
Yes, they do. The one that really gets me is when people say that they've been head down. I hate that. I hate that phrase. To me, that's like such a stupid thing to say. It's just such a weird excuse. But yeah, busy. So I love. It's always fun for me if somebody says they're busy, and not in an annoying way, but you just have to respond and be like, like with what? What have you been busy with? And half the time they're like, I'm just so busy. I'm just so busy. I don't even know I'm so busy. There's just so much stuff, so many balls in the air, so many irons in the fire, all those different expressions. And the thing is that they probably are doing a lot of things. But the idea of being busy, like if you're doing so much stuff that you don't know what you're doing, like at the end of the day, if I were to say to you, what'd you get done today? And by the way, it's not easy. But if at the end of the day, at 6 o'clock, I said to you, hey, Keith, what'd you do today? I'm sure you could name a bunch of things, but there's going to be a lot of things that you probably are not even aware of that you had to take care of or do, or little things, big things, whatever they might be, because there's just so much stuff. And the human brain, we just don't have an enormous amount of working memory capacity. But when you get to the point where you just throw your hands up, you're like, I'm busy, then you can't learn from that. You can't learn from busy.
I'm thinking that when ChatGPT and large language models were released about a year ago, you were already in the business of giving people structure and helping them automate and find virtual assistants and giving them these things to consider so that they could be less busy and that they could focus more on their results. Then these tools are introduced to us. What was your reaction to the tools? And I have to make an assumption that you have embraced them wholeheartedly and have said to somebody, because I say to somebody this, you can't ever tell me that you don't have 30 to 45 minutes or an hour to give back to yourself as a human being, because if you can adopt some AI tools, it will give you that 30 to 45 to 60 minutes back into your day, not to your employer, but back to yourself. So when these tools were introduced, Ari, how did you introduce them to your systems? And how are you coaching them to the people that you work with?
Yeah. So when they started becoming really popular, the big conversation that everyone was having was, this is going to replace coders. This is going to replace writers. This is going to replace. Some people were really excited about that. Some people were freaking out about that. And I think that was just very misguided, because you shouldn't see large language models as a replacement for true talent, and not even a replacement for kind of like subpar talent, to be perfectly honest. What you should look at ChatGPT and large language models at is a time saver, pure and simple, a time saver, and that can take a number of different forms. I use it. I use it for a lot of different things, but one of the things I use it for is doing social media. Right. So I would not consider myself a social media guru, but a few months ago at the ambulance squad, actually, that I'm the lieutenant at, I said I'd like to take over the social media, and I got a plan to do it. And literally, like in that meeting, I asked ChatGPT to give me a 45-day plan for it, and I just started reading it off. And nobody was, even then, people weren't completely familiar with ChatGPT. And I was like, I'm not a social media expert, but I can do this because of ChatGPT. I could do it without it, but it would take a lot longer. I'd have to use a whole bunch of different tools and all. So it's enabled me to take advantage of things like that. I have used it for rewriting contracts, which I then could take to a lawyer. I am a really bad reader. Audio video is my medium. Reading is just really challenging for me. It's just slow. I'm just very slow. ChatGPT is an amazing summarizer of things, right? And that's a million and one uses for it. So one of the things that I do, because fortunately, which I was very pleasantly surprised to see, but ChatGPT is familiar with me and my methodology. So you can say,
Your stuff then. So you have a copyright
yeah,
claim on that OpenAI is what you're telling me underneath the covers here.
it's pretty funny. The first iteration of ChatGPT, if you asked it to write like Ari Meisel, it would just say like less doing, more living in a lot of sentences, essentially, and just keep adding that
Yeah.
in. But
Yeah.
now it's not bad. But what's cool about that is that so I built a couple of things where I use it, and one of which is that there's a tool called Whisper Memos,
Mhm.
which is awesome. I highly recommend it. It's a mobile app, and it's the only one that I'm familiar with that has a really nice widget on the screen right there, right? So
Mhm.
you can hit that button and start recording an idea without having to open or anything. What I do is that it takes the file and it goes to ChatGPT with the transcript. Basically, it says, flesh out this idea according to Ari Meisel's 6 levels of delegation, because I have
Mhm.
a whole, and then make a Trello card out of it. So that's part of my sort of external brain process where I can capture an idea and it'll immediately fill it out a little bit, fill in some holes, and then make a Trello card, which I can then assign to somebody if I need to, or use myself. So there's so many really fun ways that I mean, those are like 4 very minor ones, but I use it all the time, and I'm constantly pushing clients to use it more and more, even as a conversational partner or a writing partner or an
Mhm.
editing partner, right? Just like, hey, what do you think of this? How could I make this a more formal tone? How could I make this into something that appeals more to a younger audience?
Since ChatGPT upgraded to the voice, and I don't know if you have GPT Plus or not, but so I've been using GPT every day since it was released, but recently even more so with me being able to talk to it
Mhm.
and the way that it has been responding to me in a very human-like manner, capturing it, having conversations. It's been both bizarre yet extraordinarily efficient and highly productive for me. All those extra minutes allow me to do what I did yesterday for you, which was send you a video message telling you that I was looking forward to welcoming you in the lab today. Because I'm like myself, we're being inundated with text content. So I thought, I bet you if I send a video message to Ari, it might stand out a little bit. And when you tell me that you're an audio video medium, it looks like I might have hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, and I actually did see your video, so that was very good.
Yeah. You open the door to the 6 degrees of delegation, you call it. Was it 6 degrees of
Six
delegation?
level
6 levels.
levels.
Yeah, the 6 levels of delegation. So you opened the door previously, a couple moments ago, when you brought that up, and I was going to bring it up in my notes here, but let's go down that path. So to somebody listening right now, they're thinking the 6 levels of delegation. I have a hard time delegating. I don't like to delegate. I'm the boss. I'm the leader. I don't want to delegate anything. Take somebody right now through those 6 levels of delegation on a high level, Ari.
One of the big issues that I've often seen with delegation is that people inherently see it as this like very binary activity, meaning like either I have to do everything or somebody else has to do everything. And neither one of those is a really good starting point for somebody who's not very good at delegating. And when I say to somebody not very good at delegating, that's basically everybody, right? And just as a sort of a tangent, not even tangent, sorry, a small sidebar. I don't know where we got this idea, leaders, founders, whatever, got this idea that everybody's a natural delegator. I think people accept that not everyone's a natural leader, but everyone's, oh, I can tell somebody how to do something. It's so misguided.
Mhm.
And whenever I used to speak in person, and I say used to because it's pre-COVID, essentially, I always used to, I would love like asking audiences, like, how many of you raise your hand if you've ever delegated something or outsourced something? And I use the two interchangeably. Like half, 60, 70% of the audience raises their hands. And I'd say, okay, so now raise your hand, put your hands down and say, now raise your hands again if you've ever had a bad experience outsourcing something. And invariably, more people would raise their hands the second time than had
Mhm.
the first time, right? So it's like, okay, good. So more of you have had a bad experience delegating than have ever delegated before. It's so everybody has. And some people, it was the last time for them, and everybody has a story about why they don't delegate, right? Because, oh, I tried to outsource it to this company in India and they screwed this up, and it's not for me. Except that they're the problem. Like 99% of the time, if you get a bad result outsourcing, it's you. So this is where the 6 levels comes in. So with outsourcing, my goal is empowerment, right? It's not just get annoying button pushing work done by somebody else. I don't want to deal with it. Don't get You shouldn't see outsourcing, and again, keep in mind, delegation and outsourcing are just interchangeable. you shouldn't outsource something just because it's annoying and you don't want to deal with it, right? It should be something that has this ability for somebody to actually engage with. And ideally, you're going to get a result that is better than you would have produced yourself, while at the same time allowing you to go back to focusing on what you do best without having a handhold. Okay, that's the ideal. So the 6 levels basically goes from just do what I say to just get it done. And what we're doing is we're dialing up the level of trust and the level of empowerment. So the first level is just do what I say, which is really, I don't want your opinion. I don't want thought put into this. Just do the thing. Buy this book on Amazon. Meaning, just buy the book on Amazon. I don't want to know if you have a better suggestion. I don't want to know if you think it should be bought somewhere else. Just buy the book. And then level 2 is I want you to look into this and come back to me. So research my options, but really it's just give me the options and I'll take it from there. Still not much empowerment, not too much trust, but a little bit. Level 3 is consult, basically, like you give me your opinion. So you go look into it and you tell me what you think we should do. But again, I'm going to take it from there. Again, dialing up the level of empowerment, somebody feels like a little bit more autonomy, a little bit more ownership over it. But again, ultimately, it's you dealing with it. Now, we get to level 4. Now things switch a little bit. Level 4 is decide. So you do look into whatever this thing is, you make the decision, and then you just let me know what we decided. So keep me informed. And if anybody who's listening who's familiar with kind of the old school consulting framework of RACI, R-A-C-I, right, which is responsible, accountable, consulted, informed, right? So you're just going to be informed at that point, right? We're not really getting your opinion. We're just letting you know, because I can still at that point be like, no, you shouldn't have done that. Let's change it, whatever. Now we're really starting to get people involved in this process. Level 5, which is my favorite, which is one that people should be using more often and just never think of, I assume, is decide within limits. The limits could be time, money, space, whatever it might be. So for hours or less, I don't need to know about it. Just do it. Make it happen. Don't delay, right? The idea here is you don't want to become a bottleneck. And what that actually came out of way before I even came up with the 6 levels delegation was that 8 years ago or so, I was away at a conference actually in Europe, but speaking at some event. I was unavailable for that reason. And there was like a $50 decision that was holding something up, and a client got very upset about it. And I was like, no, this never again. Like, this $50 is ridiculous. So I started putting rules in place. What's nice about that one too is that it really lets somebody know what their playground looks like or their corral, right? So they feel really good about it, and also it incentivizes them within reason to do better on pricing, if that's the thing, if that's the metric, if it's money. And then the last one is level 6, which is just get it done, which is basically 2 things. One is you're saying, I don't care who you have to kill, who you have to hire, what you have to do, just make this thing happen. What you're really saying, and this is really hard for people, is my involvement in this task any further than this point will hinder the process. I am not going to be a help. I am going to be a weight. And I'm handing this over to you. I'm trusting you to deal with it. You understand the result that I want. Make it happen, which is really important because for example, if I were to hire a graphic designer to come up with a new brand, I want to talk about my brand and whatnot. But ultimately, I know personally, I don't know crap about what makes for good branding or not. I know when I see it, but I don't think I could create it. So for me to stand over the shoulder of the branding expert and be like, oh, why are you doing the red? Why are you doing that font? I'm not going to help. I'm saying, you do you, and I'm going to leave you the F alone. Right now, level 6 is fascinating to me because it can be very scary for people sometimes, both sides of it. You're also you're telling that person that if a mistake is made, it's not their fault. It's not on them, rather. It is your responsibility, and I have to accept that as the delegator. Now, I've had several people working for me over the years, but I have a writer named Amy who's been working with me for a very long time and has written most of the stuff that I've put out there for several years now. And in the beginning, there were times where she would send me a draft of something and I would respond L6 and basically be like, not my problem. I trust you. I'm not going to read this. And further, that's the thing too, is I'm not going to take the time to read this. If I do, it's not going to happen for a couple of days because I'm a slow reader. I don't want to delay this. Just do it. Now, it's hard to find people and develop that relationship in some cases, unless you're hiring like a really big specialist, somebody who's like the best ClickFunnels expert in the world. That's another example of level 6. Like, you don't want my input on that. Like, you're the expert for a reason, so I'm going to stay out of the way. But it brings to mind the idea of there's a word which is a macher, which is like a person, like a doer. They make things happen. There's so many characters in movies over the years, like the wolf in Pulp Fiction, right? It's just somebody that just makes things happen. Everybody should have that in their life if they can, if they're lucky.
Ari, at what stages in a business leader or a human's life, based on your experience and your customers, does the light go on? Are they in their 30s? Have they had children? Are they just having children? Are they, wow, yeah, I'm there right now and I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now. And maybe I should start delegating. When does the light, who is that person, Ari? When does the light go on for them?
It's a great question, Keith. Honestly, it's a really good question because there's not a good answer to that because it can happen all over the place. I have a client right now who is in her late 50s and it's just starting to click now because I'm sharing it with her. And then I
Hmm.
have
But when did it
I,
click for you? Were you 20? Were you going through Crohn's disease? Were you like, when did maybe you were a young child? It sounds, did your parents have a lot of structure, Ari? Were you raised with a lot of structure in your life, which made you recognize the value of structure?
Yeah, no, my parents are both entrepreneurs. My father's an art dealer and has been for 50 years. Very successful. Both my parents very
Mhm.
successful. My mother was a real estate broker and an artist for a long time, and now in her like second life, she's a baker, which she just loves being a baker. Totally does not need to work, but she is like working her butt off as a baker. The light bulb for me was when I was like dying of Crohn's, basically in a
Mhm.
hospital, and recognizing that the situation was going to get better on its own. Again, it's that restriction in time.
The 1 hour per day you had.
Yeah, so it's actually thank you. This is helping me crystallize this for you. Tony Robbins has a really good line where she said that the people don't change until the pain of not changing is greater than the pain of changing.
Say that again.
Right. People do not change until the pain of not changing is greater than the pain of changing. Change is hard, right? But it has to be so bad to not do something that we got to do something about it. And that happens at different parts of different people's lives, right? You have people who struggle with addiction for years, but somebody finally dies and that's what wakes them up. You have somebody who hopefully it's not too late. They miss everything about their child's upbringing because they're working too hard. And at some point they recognize that they've screwed that up, maybe, and hopefully do something about it. So it can happen at any point. I think in some ways I was very fortunate that it happened to me when I was 25, basically.
Mhm.
I was diagnosed when I was 23, got really sick, and then when I was 25 was the time that I started to turn things around. But you have people who can grind it out for years and years and years and never make these changes and never make this recognition.
It happened again recently for me, I'll confess to you. So it's happened to me a couple times in my life. Back when growing my first business, I recognized that, okay, the more I delegate and empower my team around me and assist them at leading, the better everybody is and the better the business is. But then just recently, as I've been growing our new project here, the Business Athlete Performance Lab and the show of Live in the Lab, I've been surrounding myself with some incredibly talented virtual assistants and people. Hello, Kiza, and hello, Melissa, and hello, Arif. And when I need to name everybody, hello, Ayana, Awana, hello, Roland. I got my team that's just, and I love the model of the L1 through L6. I like to get people as fast as I can to L6 so I can get on to bigger, grander things because my brain's always going. But it took some of my own reflection upon my own mirror and getting out of my own way. And that's difficult, Ari, for a lot of people, is to get out of their own way, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And some of that, to be fair, is because they just don't know that there is another way.
They don't know what they don't know. Yes, that's exactly correct. Yes. And I've had this conversation with my father-in-law when they've been trying to, so they're carpenters, not internet business like you and I do. They're working in the real world with humans, and they've had difficulties from time to time scaling the business because it was difficult to pause, find the right human being, empower them, and then move forward again. And that's difficult for people to do. And that's what I had to do over the last couple of weeks myself with the business here, which is okay. We're trying to achieve too much. I'm actually not achieving anything because I'm too fucking busy. So it was slow down, pause, find some people to help me, empower them through the L1 through L6 model, and then off we go, is what you're telling me, really. And I guess with 5 kids, if I can bring that up, you have to have an L6 life, don't you?
Yeah, you could say that again. And that's the thing is, I probably, I don't even remember, honestly. I think I probably responded to your initial email requesting this interview and saying I can do it between 9 and 2 because I take my kids to school and I pick them up from school every day. That's a deal breaker for me if that something gets in the way of that. We Last weekend, I had 12 soccer games to go to. And so we make that all happen. And the other thing is, by the way, this computer that I'm on right now is my 11-year-old's gaming computer. I don't have a computer. I do everything from my phone, and am designed to do that so that I can do things from anywhere and anywhere I need to. And furthermore, 99% of the communication I do, save for the occasional podcast interview, is done asynchronously. I am absolutely refuse to do meetings or phone calls pretty much without exception.
Oh, I like this. Hold on. Let me get on my soapbox for a second here. Oh, really? So I got to tell you something funny. And so my colleague is going to be listening to this at some point. So I'm just sitting about to get into the gym this morning, and this thing starts buzzing in my pocket, Ari. I'm like, what the hell is going on? What the fuck? Oh, my phone's ringing. Somebody's phoning me. Oh, somebody's actually taking time out of my life right now because it's convenient for them.
Somebody better be dead for that.
So I'm like, okay, oh, it's Craig. Hi, Craig. I guess I better take the call. So I took the call. I shared laughter, and I'm like, oh man, but I hear you. It's phone calls and these interruptions into our time. Where was I going off with that rant? What were we saying there again? We were talking about
I do everything asynchronously as much as possible.
Asynchronously, yes. So that and this idea of meeting for the sake of meeting. So you must be a big fan of. So I'm gonna make an assumption here. Do you spend a lot of time making video recordings for your team and then sending that out to them, or using Loom or tools like that? So that, because you said you're not one who maybe writes very much, so it would appear that you probably use your phone to make a lot of videos and record messages to people. Would I be correct?
Yes, most of it is audio. I primarily use a tool called Voxer.
Yeah. So talk about that, because a lot of people are not thinking about using asynchronous audio or video in their business. I can tell you that right now.
I know. Believe me.
I know you know that, and it baffles me. That's why, again, the light went on for me yesterday. The aha moment when I was like, okay, I got this done. Wait a minute, I can actually send videos to all my people prior to show and post show really quickly instead of typing it all out. It's personal. It's not done by ChatGPT. Ari's going to probably think it's cool when he receives it. And it's a win-win for everybody, isn't it, Ari?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, I'm sure that I don't know if you did, but even if you did, it's great. I'm sure you could knock out 10 of those in a half an hour and then move on with, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I've worn the same outfit for 2 weeks now, so I can have video continuity.
That's good. So here's the mind-blowing one, I think, for a lot of people. So when I started in the business of coaching and productivity, I was doing what most coaches do, which is they'd have their live, like I'd have a 1-hour meeting once a week with each of my clients, and then they could email me in between. And this is 12 years ago, right? And I think that the limit at the time for me was like 12 clients, maybe 14 clients at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So coaching is still my primary business. Currently, I coach 26 entrepreneurs and founders and a couple COOs at last count, I think it was like 14 time zones. I spend about 20 minutes a day doing that, and they have unlimited private one-on-one access to me. So all of this is done over Voxer. I don't do a single live call. There's no Zoom, there's no webinars, there's no sales call, nothing. It is 100% done over Voxer. Again, they have unlimited access to me. Some of my clients I speak to every single day for a minute or two. I can listen to the messages at 2, 3, 4 times speed. I can spend 20 minutes and listen to all my clients' comments and questions for the day and get back to them when I want. And it's a dream. It's an absolute dream, because I can do it in the car on the way to a soccer game if I'm going to pick up a kid. I don't do it in front. I never do it in front of the kids, actually. I can, and now I have friends on it. I have my mother on Voxer, my wife on Voxer. So it just means that everything is on my time. And it doesn't mean that I take my sweet ass time and like I'm slow with things. Quite the opposite. I'm extremely efficient with it because, and also this started as a thing to be convenient for me, but ultimately I found it's actually a more effective form of coaching, because if you're my client, and today is Thursday, and our appointments every Wednesday at noon, right? And something shitty happened today, and you had a fight with a client or a coworker or whatever. Do you want to wait till Wednesday for our 45-minute appointment to get the 3-minute answer you need? Or do you want to just vent every possible curse word you can at Voxer for the next 10 minutes, move on with your life, and 3 hours from now, I'll get back to you with the silver bullet answer that you need? It's hard to make that argument that it doesn't work. So that's great, obviously, because now I realistically, I think I could probably have 40 to 50 clients this way. but I don't do sales calls like this either. So I made a YouTube video. You can go to voxwithari.com. It takes you to a YouTube video basically saying, hey, this is how Voxer works. This is how I use it. Reach out to me on Voxer. So now instead of booking sales calls on a Sunday night at 10 o'clock, I'll get a 2-minute message from some random person I've never heard of. In the morning, I'll respond to them. They'll get back to me a few hours later. 3 days later, I sign them up for a coaching program, which is, if I do say so myself, fairly high ticket. And we've exchanged 7 minutes of audio over the course of 3 or 4 days. And they now are already on the platform that I'm going to be using to coach them with. So now what happens is when somebody emails me and they want to have a call, I don't even say anything. I just respond with voxwithari.com. And if I hear from them, I do. If I don't, it's not going to work.
What a magical way to find time and put time into your and into your life, frankly. So AI has allowed us to create AI chatbots and versions of ourselves. We've recently seen Meta release their suite of AI bots. You get Snoop Dogg, you get Tom Brady, et cetera, et cetera. Ari Meisel bot coming for your coaching business? And this is a serious question. So do you look 24 months ahead, 12 months ahead, 36 months ahead? In listening to you speak, I would be surprised to think that you're not considering it.
We're already building it.
Yes.
Yeah, we're building it. I don't want, yes, so we are building it. One of the things, again, about Voxer is, yes, you can do texting and you can do chat, but it is primarily voice. So one of the things that, it's actually funny for me because sometimes I have to convince people that it's actually me and not a VA or an automation just because of the brand. They're like, oh, if this is Ari or Ari's VA. No, it's really me. I swear. Like I've literally done the thing where I take a picture of the newspaper with like I'm being kidnapped. It's primarily voice. Now, we've already cloned my voice with 11 labs and we can do that kind of stuff. And we've gotten the latency. I've been working with a very talented guy who I'm not going to name because he's keeping it private for now, but
I'll steal him.
Yeah, no, he doesn't work for me. He's actually a client.
Okay.
He's gotten the latency down to about 3 or 4 seconds, so you could have a conversation back and forth just like you're doing with ChatGPT with my voice. But here's the thing. So I don't want to use that to replace my coaching. What I want to do is use it to democratize my coaching because I truly believe that I've been able to help, at this point, I guess, thousands of people get less overwhelmed and do all sorts of wonderful things. And I truly believe that the more people I can reach and the more people I can help like that, it will just make the world a better place. And I know that sounds idealistic and maybe conceited, but that's how I feel. So I would love to be able to make something like that freely available or extremely cheaply available for people to use all over the place. So, and then of course they still have the option of actually doing coaching with me, but I'd say 80% of the conversations I have are conversations I've had before with other clients because there's so many overlaps, so many similar issues that come up. And so if I can make that more readily available to people at a lower cost with a cloned voice bot, then I want to do that.
This is gold. Like what you're telling our audience right now is gold. If people aren't paying attention to you, you can walk a horse to water, but you can't make a horse drink. Like honest to God, like you're giving people free time, free advice to save time. And what you're actually saying is, like, here's how you scale your coaching business. Next, honestly, and I congratulate you for that. All right, in the Business Athlete Performance Lab, we really believe that business performance is driven by athletic performance. And when I say athletic performance, mental, emotional, physical, endurance, all those holistic reasons why we perform in business. Tell me about you as a business athlete, Ari, because you overcome Crohn's not because you're a lazy ass, right? You're something inside of you. And I'm sorry, we don't overcome Crohn's, but you manage it, you deal with it, and you live with it. Am I correct?
I did overcome Crohn's, in my opinion. It's considered incurable, but I disagree.
Okay, awesome. That's a soundbite we're going to run over and over again. Then let's go down that path because you're even more of a business athlete than when I even started the question. Talk about being a business athlete, Ari. You have 5 kids. You clearly look in the mirror and take care of yourself. What do you do to make sure your life moves forward as a human being?
When I got sick, I was living a very unhealthy lifestyle. I was working in construction. I was up at 4 in the morning most days. I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, eating a lot of fast food, not working out, drinking, like just not. I was 23, and I got sick. And after about 2 years of being on a lot of meds, getting really sick from the meds, from the disease, I started biohacking, really. And that's where I got my sort of start in everything was biohacking. And the TEDx talk that I did was about biohacking and about getting over Crohn's. And I have been pain-free and medicine-free for almost 15 years now. And the naysayers out there would, and this is not a woo like holistic kind of a thing. The naysayers out there would say that I'm not cured, I'm just in remission. Maybe that's true. But if it were to come back at some point, I know exactly what I'm going to do about it and how I'm going to handle it, which is what I did before. So I experimented on myself with different supplements, different exercises, different foods, and ultimately found that stress was one of the biggest components of the illness, and is for many people, because stress is an inflammatory process. And it's part of it's a big reason that, besides the 1 hour a day thing, which was true because I had so little energy, but the overcoming of the stress and the overwhelm was a really big factor in creating less doing, right? I wanted to tackle the stress with control, with managing the data, with understanding how my body worked and not being a passenger in my medical journey. Excuse me. So, and really overweight. A lot of it wasn't just weight, it was like inflammation. I was like a watermelon essentially in some ways. So when I started working out at that point, excuse me, the first workout that I did after, I can't clear my throat.
That's all right. We're here with Ari Meisel here. He's telling us the story of how he's basically overcome Crohn's.
Yeah. So the first workout I ever did at that point was on the Wii Fit. Remember the Wii Fit?
I do. Absolutely. I do. 100%. Yes.
So I go from Wii Fit to the Insanity workout. I don't know if you ever heard of that one. The Insanity workout was a DVD workout that was this guy, Sean T. And to this day, I still think it's one of the hardest workouts that exists. It is such intense cardio. And I did that, and I'm like dying, totally dying.
Yeah.
But I started to feel better. I started to get like a better sense of things. I started to eat a little better. I started experimenting with different diets and foods, and I started to feel better. And then I started going off meds. And fortunately, I had a doctor who was really supportive, and I'd come in and be like, all right, what did you stop taking this time? All right, let's do your labs and let's see. So I was tracking all this stuff and learning everything I could. It's also why I became an EMT. I wanted to just learn more and more about the human body, and eventually set my sights on Ironman. And so I ended up doing Ironman in France in 2011.
That's spectacular. I love it. I love it, man. That is, and how did you do?
13 hours and 45 minutes. It's a tough Ironman. Not that there are easy ones, but it's a really tough Ironman. And I was very,
so interrupted, but the fact you showed up, so how'd you do seem to be the cursory question you always ask somebody. But the fact that you made it there and you showed up, like, dude, that's, a lot of people don't even show up, man.
Yes, that's true. And I had to say the mental aspect of it, the mental toughness that comes along with that is so important. And then I was doing CrossFit. I did the Tough Mudder and all that kind of stuff. And I became a yoga instructor also. My wife had a yoga studio. I got certified. So like it just all the things. And then and I was boxing. So I boxed for 15 years, probably because I was like an angry teenager, but I just kept boxing, and I love boxing. But as I've gotten older and as I have kids and stuff, it's a little harder to justify a concussion at this point. I was so in amongst all this. So we had 3 kids, and I was training for this event called Haymakers for Hope, which is a boxing match, amateur boxing match. 2 people who are both amateurs train for this, and then they fight in Madison Square Garden to raise money for cancer. And I was training. I was doing great. I was like one of the best times. I was in such good shape, and I was loving it. And I come home one night from a sparring session, and my wife looks at me like a ghost walked on the door. I was like, what? I looked in the mirror. I've got like a black eye, a split lip, and like blood on my shirt. And I'm like, and I was running my companies at this point. She's like, "The fuck are you doing? Like, you're gonna scare the kids." And so I was like, all right. So I stopped boxing at that point. But I haven't really worked out in years. I'm just really active with the kids, like all day, every day. Plus, I'm an EMT at night.
You're moving.
Yeah, I'm always moving. I'm a woodworker too. I got into woodworking over the pandemic. So there's just, I'm not.
And is yoga still part of your life?
No, and it really should be. I'm definitely not as supple as I used to be.
All right. So then that's one chance for me to look back to one thing I've learned every single day I've done this show is I've learned something from my guests, and I've learned a ton of things in this episode. So now it's a chance for Keith to hold Ari accountable. To say, Ari, you got to get back to happy baby, man. Listen, my kids love seeing dad coming downstairs doing happy baby. That's just like the best pose for the kids to see, right? So you got to get down there doing pigeon. You got to get back to yoga, man. It changed my life, and I know it's changed yours along the way. But yeah, I know you can find those 10 or 15 minutes to get down there and get those hips loosened again. It's only going to make your life better, pal.
You're 100% correct. You know what they call happy baby here in New Jersey?
Do I want to ask?
Jersey girl.
This is Keith Bilous, Ari Meisel. We're live in the lab. We're wrapping up. We are up against the clock. Ari, you've been a fantastic guest. What can you say to our audience? What would you like to plug? You guys, the audience can head on down to buy Ari's book, Replaceable. His website is
Doing.com.
lessdoing.com. Thank you. I have it in front of me here. Yeah. Ari, what didn't I ask you that you wanted to make sure the audience heard? Here's a chance for you to take a minute or so to talk about what I did not bring out of you during our chat today.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to plug is called Princeton Kaizen. So I've teamed up with a few people here that are friends of mine, and we're producing business leadership, business growth content, and group coaching as well on a new platform, which is PrincetonKaizen.com. Kaizen, which is a Japanese philosophy, but it's also my personal philosophy of consistent, continual improvement in every way and every possible day. So that's basically my home for new content at this point. And it's the best. My brother-in-law, Felix Bird, who is a composer for film and TV, is doing all the production, and because he lives nearby. And I think it's some of the best production value content I've ever done in my entire career. And that's where the focus is for now. So I would love people to check that out if they can. And otherwise, so people really can go to voxwithari.com, and you can reach out to me on Voxer. I'm not going to sell you on anything. You can just ask me questions. I love having conversations on Voxer.
Ari, thanks for joining me live in the lab today.
Thanks for having me.
I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I'm just going to sit you out in the green room here for a second. I say goodbye to the audience here. Give me a second here to hit this here. Go to main, hit that there. And I think we're right here. I hope you enjoyed the chat today with myself and Ari Meisel live in the lab. There's gold in this chat today. There's gold. If you're coming in later and you're coming in now, you got to go back and rewind. If you're a fitness coach, a wellness coach, any kind of coach, if you're a leader and you want to learn how to scale your life, you need to meet Ari Meisel. He told you how to meet him. He's available. You got to connect with him. He can help your life, clearly. Structure is the key. We know that, right? In the Business Athlete Performance Lab, structure is key. So without structure is no success. I'm out of here for the day. I hope you enjoyed the show with myself and Ari Meisel. I'm Keith Bilous. I'm out of here.